Hey guys, so it's been a while and I'm sorry about that. I have a lot going on and hopefully I'll be able to update you about it soon. But I wanted to do this video today for two reasons. One, hopefully is to give education to people. Hopefully people can gather some information from here and education about recovery. And the other reason why I want to do it is for support. So I can give support to people who or maybe thinking about getting clean, not really understanding or struggling in some sort of way. But okay, so I was talking to someone, and it happens often, it really does, where I speak to people who don't know about recovery, whether that's like somebody who's trying to get clean and just doesn't know how to, or is struggling with getting clean, or somebody who just doesn't really understand addiction at all. Like, they'll understand addiction, like they understand that people are addicted, but they won't be educated in the sense that they'll, call them junkies and stuff like that. And like, I know that people use that in derogatory terms, but like some people don't know that. Like, that's what I mean when they're not educated. They don't know that that's it's not right to say it like that, and it helps to build the stigma more. So when I talk to people and I tell them that I'm clean, I'll tell them, for how long I'm clean or whatever, and they'll talk about my addiction in past terms, and I'll let it slide sometimes. They'll be like, oh, when you were an addict, and I'm like, all right, like I'll give you one, I may even give you like two, but when you continue to talk about who I was and not use it in the present term, then I'll say, okay, no. I used to be an active addict. I'm still an addict. Like, I will always be an addict. An addict will always be an addict. Like, it doesn't just go away. You don't just wake up and you're cured. You're clean, but you're not cured. So, I just wanted to be able to speak to people and hopefully have them understand that once you go through this, there's no way to make it go away. Like, there's some people, and look, everybody's recovery is different. There are some people who, like they did crystal meth or shot up heroin, and they're like, oh, marijuana was never really that big of a deal, or alcohol was never really that big of a deal. I could drink once every 2-3 months, and it's never excessive and it's no big deal. Like, and I'm not going to shame anybody who feels like that, because if that is how you feel, then it is what it is. I mean, I feel like it very much still is like the addiction counselor in me. Like, we would always say like, oh, okay, so because you did an opiate and marijuana wasn't that big of a deal, like, do you really think that it's okay for you to do that? And would we use it the opposite way? Like, somebody who smoked marijuana, like, would we allow for them to test positive for cocaine? No, it doesn't. If you have to be clean, you have to be clean. And it being in New York, where I'm from, abstinence, that's like it. Did I agree with it? No, I didn't. When I was working in the field, I did not agree with it, because it's difficult. A lot of people don't just use one thing. A lot of people use a lot of different things. And to tell them, okay, today you're gonna come out positive for 5 different things, and tomorrow though, like, you're not gonna do any of that anymore. It's very difficult to work with people like that, and you have to kind of meet them where they are. And so I worked in, I think, like, one place that was harm reduction, and that, to me, it was easier, because it was like, okay, you know what, like, you're shooting up, let us not do that. I would like for you to do nothing, but instead, if you can maybe snort it, which I know it's not the best, and it still doesn't feel like the best thing to say, because it's like, oh, but you're condoning it. And that's the way that New York wanted it to be. They wanted for people to be abstinent, but eventually we want for the client to not use, but we're realistic when it comes to harm addiction, and we're gonna say, like, okay, we're gonna slowly get there, but once you're clean, you're clean. You can't, in my opinion, you can't just dabble and like do a little bit of stuff here and there, because that's not necessarily being clean. Like, I I struggled for a long time where I was like, oh, I'm drinking and it's not that big of a deal. But there was a lot of stuff that came with it. Like I made a lot of really bad choices because I was still drinking, and because I wasn't like, oh, all right, I'm going to be sober, 100% sober, because I was still not ready at that time. But once a person is ready to be clean and sober, then that's it. They don't use. And they have to continuously remind themselves, like, I cannot go back to that, not for a day. Like, people go on vacation and they think like, oh, I'm gonna, have so much fun, I'm gonna do this and do that, and for some reason, I don't know if it's like a social thing, but people think like vacation, like going and drinking and doing all this stuff, and it's like, for a sober person, you can't do that. You can't just go and drink, because for a person who's not an addict, like, you can come home, you can go to work, and be a parent and do all this stuff, and it doesn't necessarily affect you. But somebody who's struggled with any type of substance use or alcoholism or anything like that, it doesn't work like that. Like, we don't just come home and we're not just like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. You're just going to find a reason. You're going to be like, oh, it's Friday, oh, it's a holiday, oh, I don't have to take care of the kids because whatever. And I feel like even as somebody who is getting clean, it's difficult to think about that, like, never ever being able to do anything ever again. And it's something that you definitely have to come to peace with. I read this quote while I was looking, because specifically today I was looking for this quote because I had this conversation yesterday. Actually, I didn't have the conversation, but it came up quickly yesterday, where I was talking to somebody, and they were saying, oh, something, oh, you don't even know, because it's hard being an addict, blah blah blah, and I said, no, I know, oh no, but you've been clean, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, I'm not going to be 40 years clean and be like, oh well, I'm cured, I'm no longer an addict, it's no big deal. I can be 65 years clean, and on my 65th year and one day, I could relapse. It doesn't just go away. You can't just leave it there. And then people don't necessarily, like, they don't get it. Like, they don't get it. They're just very confused, and they're just like, I don't, like, never, like, even, like, it's crazy to me because I went out with some friends from work, and I worked in a treatment center, and they were like, oh my god, we're gonna get wine, oh, it's gonna be so great. And I was like, yeah, I'll take a water. And they were like, oh, let's like get a glass of wine. And I was like, no, wine is alcohol. And they were like, you can't just have one. I was like, no. Like, not even half of one, actually. And it's very interesting because these are people who, like, this is what they do for work, and I'm just, if they can't comprehend it, like, it is difficult for people, and I understand it. I really do. I understand it, and I don't fault people for relapsing, because a lot of people think, oh, it'll be okay, it's not that big of a deal. But I feel like I say all of that to say, I know it's like I always go and go and go, but I say all of that to say, if there was more education, and if there wasn't so much of a stigma, and if we actually understood that we don't do things just a little bit, and we do things to a complete excess, that maybe it will be a little bit easier, and we wouldn't be so hard on ourselves, like this. It's not abnormal for us to continue to have thoughts of like, okay, like, today's a really bad day, and I just wish that I could take the edge off in some way. And having that thought, it's normal as long as you don't act on it, because people may be so confused when, you're not engaging in the social act of drinking or smoking or whatever it is that they're doing, but they're judgmental when you start there and you just don't stop. And that's the lack of education, because it's like, people want to be okay with people drinking, and people want to be okay with things like that happening, but then they're not okay with, things like having a homeless shelter or a drug treatment program in their community, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just because they're not educated and they don't get it. Like, when you're looking for social acceptance, you have to understand that not everybody fits into that mold. You know, like, my neighbor may be able to do, but I may not be able to do. And what I do may lead to an issue, may lead to me, you know, stealing or being homeless and all this stuff. And it's, how can there be so much acceptance when it's okay to their standard, but it's there's no acceptance when, you know, it's completely the other end of the spectrum. I don't know, it's a lot. It really is a lot. And it's complicated, because if it was so easy, if it was literally as easy as just taking a break and being able to come back, then maybe people would have more of an understanding, or maybe people would want to get it. But because people just can't understand, they can't wrap their minds around the fact that, you know, we will never live a normal life, or I will, at least, will never live a normal life. Because it's just not possible. I've tried. Believe me, I'm sure every single one of us have tried. And it may start out slow. It may start out really slow, and it may be like, oh, okay, this is manageable, but it doesn't end up that way. It's complete chaos, which is why we chose to be sober, which is why we fight every single day. We fight. And the quote that I posted up today, you know, recovery, it is a lifestyle, and you have to push, and you can't let what people say matter, because people aren't going to get it. You know what? If they don't get it, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. You could keep these people in your life, in your circle, but don't allow for what they say and what they do to impact you, because at the end of the day, if you allow for it to, you know, take over your life, and you're trying to wrap your head around something that may not make sense to them, as long as it makes sense to you. So like I said, I'm here to give support. I understand. I get it. Don't feel bad if somebody attempts to make you feel bad for what it is that you're doing, staying sober. It's not about them. It's about you. You can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook now. Raw Recovery Talk. Still on YouTube and on Instagram. Thank you guys.